So I always have to start with my never eat soggy waffles. Okay. So it says that he went the ship. So we're at the port. And it traveled 9 miles west. So that would be this direction. And then it turned and went up north 15 miles. At that point, what bearing will the ship have to take to return? So we're returning here. That would be this angle right here. Remember, bearing has to be with the vertical. So according to where that bearing is located, we have opposite and we have adjacent, which is tangent. So who used tangent? And so the tangent of the bearing is equal to opposite over adjacent, which means that the angle is equal to the inverse tangent of opposite over adjacent. So I got 30.964 degrees. But remember, whenever you're writing a bearing, you have to include direction. So what direction are we taking to head back to the port? Southeast. So south, 30.964. If you put 91, 91 is also okay. I'm not 91, sorry, 31. If you put 31, that's okay also. Okay. Any questions about that? And again, who had that answer? Just curious. You flipped them? Oh, okay, so because the ship was here, so it had to turn. So think the bearing should be close to where, if it was a ship or a plane, it should be where that is. All right, let's look at question 8. So we have an airplane that is 25 miles northwest from the airport. So the airport would be here. And it's going this way. This is my plane. And it's 25 miles northwest. So that would be my hypotenuse. It says the angle of depression from the plane to the airport runway is 45.5 degrees. So now this is where we have to think about. We're going to have a rectangle, okay? But my angle of depression is always with the horizontal. So that angle of depression, I'm going to move this 25 actually. Move it here. Is right here. And it's asking for the plane's altitude. And remember, altitude is the same as height. I know my triangle is a little raggedy, but this is where your altitude is. So you're not looking for an angle for part 1. So go ahead, set up your trig ratio and solve for the height. Angle of depression, yes. Who's using sine? Anybody using cosine? Tangent? Who's not sure? Okay, I'll give you a minute to label your sides. We all agree that 25 is the hypotenuse, right? Is x opposite or adjacent that angle? Opposite. So what ratio uses opposite and hypotenuse? Sine. right, so 25 times the sine of 45.5, I got 17.831 miles or 17.8 miles. Who had something close to 17.8? All right, and then it's asking you what bearing should the plane take. So remember, if we look at this same triangle, the difference between a bearing and an angle of depression is where that angle is located. So for a bearing, that would be this angle. But what do you all know about geometry? What do those two angles have to add up to be? These two angles, are equal to 90 degrees, right? So how can we find this angle? Yeah, take 90 minus 45.5. So your bearing in this example is actually quite easy to find. So the bearing is going to be 90 minus 45.5, which I believe is 44.5. And what direction are we going to take? So he left going northwest. So when he comes back, he's going to travel what direction? Southeast. And that would be your bearing. All right, so now we're going to talk about the law of sines. So law of sines. Did you all talk about that in geometry? I don't think so. I think you all talked about the law of sines. Okay. So the main thing to keep in mind, so we got homework 13, which is due on Friday. And of course, you can also turn it in the day we come back from break, which is Tuesday, April 9th, for full credit. We get Monday off because it's the eclipse, the 8th. So we come back on Tuesday, April 9th. Okay, so law of sines. So not all triangles are right triangle. So we're out of right triangle trig. So no more 90-degree angle. And because we don't have the 90-degree angle, we can't do sine, cosine, tangent anymore. Okay, so that goes out of the way, out the window. So what are some other ways to solve a triangle if they're not a right triangle? There's actually two different laws. We're going to talk about law of sines, I think, before break. I don't know if we do law of cosines before break or after break. So remember that chapter 8 is split, so we have that break in the middle. Please don't lose the packet, though. Okay, so go ahead and draw out your triangle, and we'll talk about it. The main thing about law of sines is you have to have a pair. You have to have a pair of one side, one angle. So we're going to draw a triangle SRT. And we know angle S is 51. So remember, angles go inside. We know angle R is 63. And I know that little r is 13. And little r has to be opposite big R. So I'll give you a minute to draw your triangle out. So in order to solve the triangle, that means we need to find what we don't know. So we don't know what angle T is. So we need to find that. We also don't know what? What two sides don't we know? Little t. And we also don't know little s. So that's what we have to find. So the easiest thing to find is what? Big T, right? How can you find big T? 180 minus, so let's go ahead and find that. 180 minus 51 minus 63. All right, who got 66? I heard somebody say 66. Okay, so 66. Okay, so now to find little t and little s, we can't use regular sine, cosine, tangent because it's not a right triangle. We need a pair. And by pair, I mean in order to do the law of sines, you need to know a pair. So you need to know an angle and side pair. So do you see how we know big R and little r? Because we know big R and little r, we can use the law of sines because that's going to be my anchor. So we're going to take the sine, I'm going to write this out. So we're going to take the sine of big R over R, and I'm going to set that equal to the sine of, and I'll find S first, 51 over little s. So I'm going to take it the sine of big S over little s. That's what we're going to use. So sine of big R, so sine of 51 over, oh, sorry, that's not R. Big R is 63. So we have sine of 63 over 13, and that equals the sine of big S, which is 51 over little s. So we're just going to cross multiply. So I'm going to cross multiply like this. So that gives me 13 sine 51 equals little s times the sine of 63. Divide both sides by the sine of 63. So in your calculator, you're going to type in 13 sine 51 divided by sine of 63. And we'll go out to the thousands place. All right, so take a minute, hit your fraction bar, and just type it in. And I got 11.339. So use, if you're not using a calculator that has fractions, you may want to put parentheses around here and then divide it by sine of 63. So 11.339. So little s equals 11.339. All right, so now let's find little t. So to find little t, I'm going to use the sine of r over r, and that's going to equal the sine of t over little t. So that would be the sine of 63 over 13. And that equals the sine of, what's t? 66 over little t. Go ahead, cross multiply and solve that. And I got 13.329. Who got 13.329? All right, go ahead and try to draw out the next triangle. Does anybody need help typing it in the calculator? So with the information that they gave us, we could not use the law of the law of sines, because remember, we need to know a pair. However, we can easily find angle C. And after we find angle C, then we'll have angle C and side C. And we can do the law of sines. So we have to first find the angle C. All right, who got 130 degrees? Okay. So this is an obtuse triangle, so my triangle is not really accurate as far as, because I just drew an equilateral triangle, but that's okay. So now that I know that this is 130, I can use the law of sines. So when I use the law of sines, I'm going to use the sine of C over little c, and then I'm going to find A first. So I'm going to set it up as the sine of A over A. So we have the sine of 130 over 5. And that equals the sine of 35 over A. So we can't use regular sine, and we cannot use Pythagorean theorem because we don't have a right triangle. All right, did you get 3.744? 3.744 for A? Okay. All right, so now let's find B. So for B, you're going to use sine of C over C, and that's going to equal sine of B over B. So again, we have sine of 130 over 5, and that's going to equal, so the measure of angle B is 15. All right, go ahead and solve that for side B. And I got 1.689. And you have solved the triangle. Oops. Any questions about the law of sines and how to set it up? All right, let's go ahead and do one more. I'm gonna give you a minute to do this one on your own, and when you get your answers, raise your hand and I'll tell you if I agree. And we'll end there. That's what I got. Yep. I didn't get that because that's a 10. Because it was 100. You subtracted 13. But the setup is right. But it's for angle T, it was 100. It was 180 minus 100 minus 10. You did minus 13. Yep. Okay, you all did really good. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and show my answers. Tomorrow, we will continue on with the law of sines. And if you have any questions over homework that's due tomorrow, you let me know.